He showed me my bladder. He said, you've got aggressive invasive bladder cancer. It's stage 3. And he said you would have been dead. And I was like, oh my God. I started feeling a bit.
Hi there, my name is Adam Smith. I'm a Sky's boxing commentator. Knockout number 18. This guy is a monster.
Adam Smith, widely regarded as the voice of boxing in the UK, has been a prominent commentator for over 30 years. The man behind Britain's biggest fights reveals industry secrets, fighter truths, and his comeback from cancer.
A lot of people didn't even know my situation, mentally and physically broken. I had messages from Frank, Eddie, AJ messaging me one night, Tyson Fury, 4 hospitals over 3.5 painful months. Came out of surgery, I had lots of holes and tubes and things, and obviously high drugs. And brain saying, I know something is seriously wrong. And then
piece of egg hit somebody's face. Is it really boxing now?
Things can happen in boxing, but I love it. The production to play out, the event to go. How's he going to make the most money? Did I like Mike Tyson against Jake Paul? No, I didn't. Fury and Joshua fight. That will stop traffic. Pick up a mic and talk about the fights. There's a huge amounts of preparation that go in, and it's tough, and you don't get a lot of sleep. Weekend working, the holidays. This industry is hard. Television and sport. Every day I miss Johnny Nelson. I don't see him as much. Of course, we're doing different things, but I was there when Eubank and Benn's rivalry, the fathers were at it in the sort of late 80s and early 90s. Great times for boxing, because I don't think either of their sons is quite as good as Chris Sr. or Nigel. Getting into Sky Sport, the really, really dark side of boxing, the sad side, I have not felt like this.
Welcome back to Take a Seat. This is the #1 channel for mindset and motivation. Today, we have a legend with an unforgettable voice. He's got so much knowledge and success in the sports commentary industry. His most famous words are "lift off for AJ." He's been on our screens for the last 3 decades and watched many battles. But his biggest battle was actually off screen, fighting bladder cancer. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Adam Smith.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm alive, which is always a bonus. Grateful for every day. I wake up happy now that I've got more time, and it's lovely. I've got 3 beautiful kids and close family and friends, and as you mentioned, went through a very, very difficult time in my life, but it's nice to be back. It's nice to be working again, and I've got a different perspective on things. So it's almost like another chance, really, another opportunity to enjoy and experience life in a different way, and I'm going to take the most of it.
Amazing. I mean, it's phenomenal to have you back, honestly, because we missed you a lot.
Thank you.
And do you know what? I recognized your voice all the time, but when I saw you, I was like, oh, is that the guy with the voice? Like, I don't know if you get that a lot, but people recognize your voice more than you.
Yeah, maybe. I think boxing fans, sort of hardcore fans, recognize you from time to time. Obviously, if you're at events,
Yes.
But sometimes when you're walking down the street, and boxing's one of those sports that when it's big, when it's huge, it really sort of seeps into the casuals' mindsets. But often it's the real hardcore fans, and they recognize you, and they just want to talk boxing, which is great. Sometimes it's the voice, I guess. I've done more commentary probably than presenting over the years, but I'm just a very normal guy. I love talking to people about boxing, but I still gets a bit funny when someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, Adam," because you're doing your own thing, or you're with the kids or something, and then someone says something. But it's often if and when I'm recognised, it's by a real boxing fan. So often they want to just chat about whether it's AJ or Fury, or whether it's something else in the fight world. But I love talking to fans. I am a fan, and I've got a channel, The Voice of Boxing, and in that, I think one of the main ideas of it is to get amongst the fans and just get a real feedback from what people want to see and what they love, and boxing's in a great place at the moment, so it's really enjoyable chatting to people, and it's just lovely being back around the scene, and thank you for those kind words. I'm just as I said, a guy who has a dream job. I love what I do. I've wanted to do it since I was a young boy, and I'm very, very lucky in my early 50s to still be doing it. And I don't take that for granted at all. Every opportunity that provides and presents itself, I grab it and I put everything into it.
I've just got to give so much appreciation to your actual job, your role, because I've been to so many boxing matches as well. And honestly, like not saying anything bad about ticket sales or going to arenas, but sometimes you can be quite high up and the ring's very small. You're watching on the screen anyway, and you can't hear nothing. So it's the whole. That's when I sort of gave some real appreciation to the commentary team, because it's like it doesn't feel like half as good because you can't hear what's going on. And then you're thinking, actually, do I really know what's going on? Who's winning? But when the commentators are up close, they're telling you who's jabbing, who's nicking the rounds. You've got other people around you also, so that's when I really, really appreciated
Sean, that's a really
commentators.
good point. I think that sometimes when I take the headphones off or I go as a fan to a show I'm not commentating on, it is odd because you've got the crowd atmosphere and you can talk amongst yourselves, but you sometimes don't have that guide.
Yes.
And I'm a lead commentator, so I'll describe the action and maybe push the drama, whereas I've got next to me, I might have Darren Barker and Barry Jones, the former world champions, the experts at what actually happens in the ring and what a fighter will be going through at different points of it. So I get that. If you're sitting up there and thinking round 6, round 7, wonder what's going through the mind or what the corner is saying or how the guys are seeing it down there at ringside, how they're scoring it, what's the feel of it. I've been to sport events like snooker, for example. You go there and you put an earpiece in, you can listen to the commentary. And I've always wondered why, at boxing maybe that option isn't there, that you could have that. And I don't know. I mean, different sports maybe in different ways, but that's something that definitely the television audience get, or the radio, which paints the picture, and you're relying on the words there. But if you watch it on television, then you've got the sound. I mean, there are people that turn the sound down, don't want to hear the commentary, but yeah, I think the majority sort of like it as a sort of a guide or sort of rhythm as the fight's going on, that you just like hearing that. I guess now with the kids, they're on their screens so much and maybe double screening and things like that. But it gives you, I think the more it presents itself, that you can understand what's happening, because boxing can be very nuanced, it can be very niche, and most of us who commentate have seen many years of boxing or many fights, and you get experience about what little things might be happening that maybe someone who's come for the first time or a non-boxing fan who wants to learn about it don't really understand. So I think it is part of education and also the enjoyment. For me, it's about storytelling. Absolutely. Fighters are wonderful characters. They're brilliant. You fall in love with them, and you need a hook. You need to know why. You look at Eubank Benn, or you look at if Fury and Joshua fight. That will stop traffic, those fights, because people are really interested in the story, and they want to invest themselves into it. And when you care about something, it's so much more important. So part of our job is to add that drama and to make sure that fighters are getting the most out of when we commentate, but also fans can listen to it and come back again, that they want to follow the journey of that fighter, maybe in their first fight or their 10th fight. They think, oh, where's he going to go? Where's the trajectory? Where's the journey? Where's the hopes? Where are the dreams? What happens when he loses? And you just get into that. I think Ricky Hatton was a perfect example of someone like that, boy next door who started off obviously very talented, but everyone grew with Ricky. The fans grew, the interest, because people felt like they knew him almost, and they were going to watch a mate fight. And that's when you've hooked fans in like that. That's when we can have a good time.
Today's episode has been sponsored by Sean Land. We're growing a like-minded community on Discord. So if you click on the link in the bio, you can enter it absolutely free. Absolutely. I mean, just the way you even commentate, like, I think people would say, AJ, the way you would shout it on the screen, like I've been a kid and just been wanting to imitate what the commentator sort of says. So it's just like it's like a unsung hero, if that makes sense. People don't even realize they're doing it, but you're making that sort of happen in a 3D event sort of thing. You've had a very busy weekend already. So today's Monday. You know, people don't know what day it is, until this is released. But the last few days have been really busy. We've been messaging a little bit here and there. You've been running on like 4 hours of sleep. You know, first of all, a lot of people just think, oh, he just grabs the mics and just starts talking, and and then he's done after that hour or two of that show.
And they would think that you just pick up a mic and talk about the fights. There's a huge amounts of preparation that go in. I always say to my kids, you know, the Muhammad Ali quote, fail to prepare to fail. And I think that's right. I'm always very professional in the way I prepare for things. So preparation for a commentary it starts a long time out, maybe even when a fight's announced. So they announced Fabio Wardley and Jarrell Miller at the weekend to them to battle in June in Portman Road at Ipswich Town. And I mean, I know both of them very well. I spent a lot of time with Fabio and Jarrell Miller. I go way back with. So already you've done preparation in a way because you understand their careers and where they are and a bit about their personalities. But during the sort of next few weeks, it will be a case of maybe speaking to them on the phone, speaking to their trainers, talking to the promoter, other people about the fight within the industry. And then it's just sort of preparing it, which might be looking for all the rankings, the statistics, going back over their boxing records, amateur, pro, their lives outside of boxing. So you sort of build up a picture not only of them as a fighter, but them as a human being. And also, boxing's all about levels. So you look at a fight, and if it's very high level, you're going to not put more preparation in, but there's obviously more into it. It's not like if you're having your 4th or 5th fight. Delicious already turned professional at the weekend. Obviously, a lot of attention on him, but it's not his British title fight. It's not his world title fight. So you've got to find ways to go with it. You can't sort of put everything into an early 4-rounder and leave nothing for when they fight for a really meaningful shot. But yeah, something like that. I prepare long and hard, and then on the week you tend to be around the press conferences or the weigh-ins, and I always find you get little nuggets. What are they having for their pre-fight meal, or how have they made the weight, or are they struggling a little bit? Are they doing final workouts in the gym? How do they spend their day on fight day with the nerves and building up to it? All of those things. Different fighters have different idiosyncrasies and ways that they prepare. So it's getting all of that. And look, when the fight happens, I used to say this to the guys at Sky. We can do all the build up and do the gloves are off and the countdowns and everything and put everything into it. But when that bell goes, it's up to the fighters. That's out of your control. So they could fight. It could end in a round. It could be a 12-round war. It could be a fairly dull fight. It could be anything. So you've got to be prepared to bring sort of fun, cool information out at different times during the fight because you remember you are entertaining. Boxing is a business to entertain, and that's why certain fighters get criticized maybe if they don't get the knockout, and it's not fair. There may be a lot of pressure on them. They may have an injury. There may be lots of reasons, but it is an entertainment business, and fundamentally the promoters are looking for that. We call what's in front of us. We have to be totally unbiased, totally neutral. When we pick up the mic, it doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't matter whether you spend more time with one or more time with the other, or like that one style or that one style. You have to be totally neutral. That's really important. And the co-commentators I've had over the years, Jim Watt, Glenn McCrory, Matt Macklin, Paulie Malignaggi, Carl Froch, Tony Bellew, now Darren Barker, Barry Jones, everybody, and more. Michaela Mayer's a very good co-commentator, Tasha Jonas. We have to call it as we see it. That's the key, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing a professional job. So that job starts early, and it is a busy run-up. So when you pick up the mic, you shouldn't really have to look at the notes because it's there, and you have to pick out the information as and when you need it. And sometimes you don't need that information because the fight's done and dusted like that. So you have to react to what's going on, but you've got that behind us. And I'm a sort of all-in type person, Sean. I'm like, when I commit myself to something, I want to do it. And sometimes, you're on the road for a few days and it's tough and you don't get a lot of sleep. And I get home and I see the kids and then it's off to the next one. You've this industry is hard. You know, television and sport. It's the weekend working, the holidays, Easter Sunday. We've got to fight. Often when everyone's at home resting or having nice meals and eating Easter eggs, you're out and you're providing that entertainment in a way, I guess, for the people at home. So that can be hard. That balance. But I always say I've never worked a day in my life. Yes, I have worked hard, very hard. But what I mean by that is that I enjoy 95% of what I do, and I've wanted to do it since I was a little boy. And I feel very, very blessed and lucky that I have done it, and I never take it for granted. So I'll be preparing for the next fight just as diligently as I prepared for one 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Amazing. People don't realize how much of a sort of boxing historian you've got to be, because ultimately they're coming for you for the guidance of who is this guy if they've never seen him before, what is their amateur pedigree, because sometimes you can't even Google and find that stuff out. So the fact that you speak to trainers and camps and find that information, I never ever even thought of that process. So thank you for sharing that. A few things you said there, Adam. You mentioned Miller, and you also mentioned boxing is an entertainment industry. Some people do think, well, it's one of my favorites. It's my favorite. I love the heavyweight division, middleweight division, ever since it was the thing that I did with my dad, the thing that we had in common, even though we don't really talk that much. But when it comes to boxing, we'll have a beer together, and watch it. And then who's going to win? We'll share notes. It's just that kind of thing that brings us together. But for some people, they feel that boxing is a brutal sport, punching a man's head senseless, causing brain damage and things like that. And I suppose that's not the point I'm trying to get to, but you mentioned Miller. Miller was caught a few years ago for drug cheating. I think they said Conor Benn, was cleared. But what's your opinion if somebody is caught with PEDs in their system? Should they be allowed to box again with the environment? You see it firsthand in front of you in the ring. Is that something that somebody's made a mistake? Food's been contaminated? Or, should there be one glove fits all?
Sean, let's get this absolutely straight. There is no place in boxing for drugs. There is no place in boxing for drug cheats. Absolutely not, because it is a very dangerous sport. You look at athletics and other sports that have had big problems with drugs, and the thing with boxing, as you said, you're hitting each other. It's hard enough as it is, and there will always be critics out there for boxing. I have. My stepmom's not the biggest boxing fan, but I have long chats with her and say that there are so many people that have been saved because of boxing. The discipline, the structure, taking kids off the streets who are going the wrong way and giving them hope. Even Lily Winch the other night at the York or Bethnal Green was having all sorts of problems at school. She didn't fit in, and she found the boxing gym, and she's had a total transformation in life. So, and there's huge amounts of stories around the world, of Mexico, America, Mexico, Puerto Rico, all the places that I've traveled. I did a lot of, in the early Sky days, I did a lot of reporting around some very, very difficult areas of the world. And, boxing in many ways has saved huge amounts of young kids, wayward kids, and it's taught them the way. And they don't even have to become fighters. It's just the manner of going to a gym, the camaraderie, the teamwork, the sustained sort of concentration and focus on something, and the enjoyment, and obviously the physical and mental well-being. So drugs is very difficult. It's a grey area. We know that there's been people that have failed drugs tests a lot over the years, and it's never nice to hear. The trouble is, I guess you never really get the full truth. It's very hard. So the testing is expensive. Sometimes it's just urine testing. Sometimes it's blood, VADA. It depends sort of what level the event, the promoters, the managers, the fighters go to for testing. And in my opinion, they should be thoroughly tested throughout. Andy Murray used to say to me, because he's a big boxing fan, and he and I and Johnny Nelson got very close for a while, and he loved talking boxing. And he used to say it was awful because in tennis they do random testing, and he said People complain that they're always turning up, whatever. He said, I never complain because I know how important it is. And I think about boxers because, boxers are tennis players. We're just hitting the ball hard at each other, right? It's a 101. There's a lot of similarities, but boxers are, every time they get in the ring, their lives are on the line. They have to protect themselves. They have to, they have to. Ultimately, it's a skilled sport, but ultimately, you've got to hit the other guy to win the fight, right? So it's so dangerous. So there's no place for drugs. When fighters fail drugs tests, it's not up to me. It's not up to the promoter. It's not up to the fighter what the punishment is. It's up to the commission or the license regulator. Whoever, the British board here, or the difference with the boards in the world. There's lots of different states in America, and people have a different sort of take on it. Some are banned for a period of time, some are banned for a long period. And then fighters always claim innocence, right? They'll always say, they got into my system via anything. Eggs, as we've seen recently.
Steak.
Wild boar. We've had all sorts, haven't we? And there's been a lot of fighters that have been brushed with that potential drugs problem. And many have said, look, it's either contaminated something or somebody obviously put something in my system because I wouldn't have done it. And I guess that's the thing, Sean, going back to it. We'll never really know the truth. It is such a grey area. So I will say there is no place for drugs in the sport. However, if you've been deemed to have served, your time, your ban from it, and that's what you've done, and that's the rule, then you're then cleared to fight again. That's what it is. So, Jarrell Miller has failed tests before, but if he is cleared to fight again, and that's not up to me, that's not probably even up to him. It's up to the governing bodies, and if they decide that he's okay to fight, or any of the others to fight, not Conor Benn, we know is fighting in a couple of weeks' time, and everyone wants to see that fight. It's a huge fight, and probably most of the casuals on the street don't care. They just want to see whether Benn fights Eubank or Eubank fights Benn. But obviously, no one wants drugs anywhere near it. And if Conor, who failed the test, said, "Look, I haven't taken drugs," maybe there's a way that something's got into his system, or it is a peculiarity. You never quite know, and because I'm not a scientist or a doctor, I can't really talk about what's in the system. All I can do is, like you, I read what's happened, and I just keep the same thing, which I think every fighter and every commentator agrees, which is there is no place for drugs in the sport. The trouble, I guess, is if you know or you think somebody has taken drugs and then the opponent thinks, well, if he's taken drugs, then I've got to try and be on the same plane. That's when you get into real trouble. So look, the best thing is the testing has to be absolutely critical. I think there should be more of it. How it's paid for. I mean, there's Turki Al-Sheikh, who's changed boxing, and Dana White coming in, and they want to make it into a sort of round UFC type thing, and I'm with one champion and all of that. And while that's going on, maybe it's where, right, they need to spend more money on the VADA testing, the very best testing we have, to try and eliminate it as much as possible. Will it ever be eliminated? I don't know, because, as I said, it's such a grey area about what is. And then there's the innocent fighters who've taken something by mistake, or have taken something from a shelf that they thought was maybe even for a cold or something, which they didn't realise was on the ban list. But really, an athlete at that level should know his body, and should, if he fails something, be able to say, hey, look, I failed it. It may not be me. It may have got into my system in another way, but I need to take responsibility for that, because it's a failed test. And or we're going to fight it, but if it says positive, then I've got to take the hit on this, even if I haven't willingly taken drugs. So it's it's a tough one.
So here's one for you: if someone is found to have performance enhancing drugs in their system, they win a fight and they've done damage to somebody else, should they be going down for GBH, manslaughter, sort of them sort of
Again,
charges?
that's not an area I can get into. I'm not a lawyer, a solicitor, a judge, or anything like that. So boxing's a dangerous sport. All I'll say is there is no room or no place for drugs in that sport, and you don't know. It's like with boxing, you can't have an action replay or stop something again. It happened at the weekend, not in drugs, but with David Adelaide and TKV, and David Adelaide wins by knockout. He's the British heavyweight champion, and okay, he wins, but if the referee said break a couple of times, well, what about that then? Okay, TKV's knocked out. They can't stop it, go back and start again. They have to either have a rematch or they have to accept boxing's a rough business, and once or twice these sort of things happen and hands go down and you got to protect yourself. So it's a very difficult one. If someone is found guilty of drugs and the other guy's got badly hurt, then okay, there's going to be some sort of legal battle, you'd have thought, ensuing on that. But ifs, buts, and maybes. Yes. All we can do is go with. I'm a commentator. I commentate on what's in front of me. I don't decide. People used to say to me at Sky, it's like, it's your fault that you're head of boxing, that's happening or whatever. Yeah, sometimes maybe it is, but ultimately I don't decide. The promoter puts the fights on. Yeah. We do talk about it, about what should go on, but the promoter is in charge of the event and what fights go on. The fighters are responsible for actually fighting, so that's another unknown or unpredictable. We as commentators commentate on it. It's like when we went to Saudi and people were saying you shouldn't go to Saudi Arabia. Went to Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia was the event putting on the show. I've been to Saudi many times in the last few years, and I think there's huge change going on in Saudi, and that's really good to see. So I think it's always best to stay out of the sort of areas of, what should happen like that with the drugs, whatever. I'm a commentator, I'm a broadcaster. It's not my job to decide that. I have an opinion, and my opinion is there should be no drugs in sport, full stop, in sport, but particularly boxing, because boxing is so dangerous. So no, I'd like to see drugs being eradicated, but if a fighter is found guilty, they should be putting their hands up at least to say, hey, we're going to get to the bottom of what happened and take their punishment that is administered. And the punishment, the problem is, varies from fight to fight and year to year and governing body to governing body. So maybe there is a place in the future in boxing where there is one, sort of universal governance that says this is what has to happen at British level, at European level, at world level, or maybe it has to happen at every level. But it's a lot of money. There's a huge expense in the process of VADA testing and stuff. So that's another area of difficulty.
Yes. You mentioned a few people's names in there, like David Adelaide, who just won this weekend. What do you think about his performance? Yes, the referee did shout out sort of break, and then there was a hit. But regardless of that, he did know how to finish that shot. He looked really powerful. And I feel that, well, you'll probably tell us more so, there's a new era of heavyweight boxers coming through now. I was just looking it up. He's 6'4"? So he's up there, because I've always seen like Mike Tyson era sort of thing. Like you had smaller heavyweights, whereas then you got to the, Tyson Fury 6'9", Joshua 6'7", 6'8" sort of thing. So he's in and around there. Do you feel that, David has a chance to fight among the top level?
Look, heavyweights have changed over the years. I was reading an old program with Cassius Clay and Henry Cooper from the 1960s the other day, and I think Clay, that's what he was, Ollie, at the time, was 13 stone something, and wow. You're now looking at heavyweights weighing in at 17, 18, 19 stone, and I think Lennox Lewis was a huge heavyweight. The Klitschko's too, the modern era of the sort of super heavyweight, really, because that's what they fought in the amateurs, AJ and Fury, and you look at Delicious Ore turning pro the other night, 6'6", some of these guys, and I think Joe Joyce and Filip Hrgović both around 6'5", 6'6". So these are big men. David Adelaide, TKV, about 6'4", I think. What did I think the other night? Look, as I said, he won the fight. The referee let it go on. He's the British heavyweight champion. Should there be a rematch? Potentially. Ben Davison and Barry Smith were going mad. They came around to our screens. The referee definitely called break. I think he called break a couple of times. Then there was earlier in the fight where TKV may have hit David after a break. So these things can happen in boxing. Matt Macklin was showing me on his way home, because he had Corey O'Regan, and he said that when Jack Rafferty hit him there with the referee had his hand in there. So look, there are things that happen in there, and referees sometimes get it absolutely spot on, and sometimes it's tough being a referee too, when to call that time, and especially with heavyweights where one punch can change things and they've got to get in there. So it's a hard job being a ref. I think maybe a rematch is the fair outcome. I think TKV was boxing really well. I don't think David had a great night until that point. I spoke to Adam and Booth and David afterwards, and he didn't really let his hands go. Unfortunately, he did at that time, and he won by knockout. So I think he's got power. I think he's got a place at that, within that heavyweight table. He's the British champion now, so he'll have to show us a lot more to move into that world elite. He lost to Fabio Wardley, so but he's certainly one of the guys out there. But I think we'll see TKV come back because of that, and there's a huge amount coming through. But the guy I'm really hot on is Moses Italma. I think he's the future of the heavyweight division. I think he's a very, very talented fighter. He hits really hard. He's got beautiful feet. His timing are good. He's incredibly dedicated. And I think the most important thing about Moses is you talk to the likes of AJ, Fury, Lawrence Okoli, everyone that he's been in with, sparring with since he was a young kid. Nobody says anything bad about Moses Italma. Quite the opposite. They say he is absolutely lightning. And I know Moses quite well, and he wants to go and spend time with Alexander in his camp and learn from Usyk too. I love what I see with Moses. So yeah, there's a great deal of heavyweight talent coming through. Ajit Kabayel's a guy that people aren't really talking about, but he keeps on upsetting the odds. He keeps on putting terrific performances on. So he's right up there for a challenge soon. So Daniel Dubois, of course, is still late 20s. So there's a lot of young lions around, and the heavyweight division is going to be mixed up for the next couple of years after Alexander Usyk retires. But still, Usyk is the man to beat at the moment.
Yeah. We've got to talk about where we're talking about Easter coming up. The egg. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I get it. I understand it. People who weren't talking about boxing are talking about boxing now because of the egg. Obviously, when Eubank slapped Conor Benn with the egg on the face, it's all over the papers. Everybody's asking me for fight predictions who weren't even following boxing. So I get the stunt behind, and I think like Eubank is a very intelligent young man, especially just like his father. He's just alone on this side, and then you've got a whole row of articulate, you've got the Eddie Hearns, you've got Nigel Benn, who's been through it all, the Dark Destroyer. You've got Conor Benn sitting there where I don't think he's much of a talker. He'll say a little bit here and there. But the way Eubank has articulated himself and conducted himself and tried to stage it alone without even his father in the background, but then also getting fined, I think it was about 100,000 for that stunt. First of all, I just want, your opinion around the whole sort of situation of the fight. And then second of all is, what do you think of this? We talked about things, not being correct, VADA testing as much, etc. But when a piece of egg hits somebody's face, is it really something that should be made an example of £100,000?
There's a lot in that question. There's a lot to sort of dissect. I think the most important thing is what do I think of the fight, which is Eubank and Benn. I love it, and I was there when Eubank and Benn's rivalry, the fathers were at it in the sort of late 80s and early 90s. Great times for boxing. Big fight nights and millions watching on terrestrial television, and a genuine rivalry of hatred. And I got to work with Nigel and Chris for the latter sort of few fights of their careers. And brilliant sort of characters as well as fighters. And they were really, really good fighters. I don't think either of their sons is quite as good as Chris Senior or Nigel, but they're very good. And it's a wonderful story, the sons of the legends. And of course, because of what happened with the failed drug test and all the stuff that Connor's had to go through to clear his name, and all the sort of the nightmare period he's had, and Junior as well, because he lost his beloved brother Sebastian. So the Eubank family had tragedy. Conor was trying to sort his own career and life out, and they've had a rough couple of years, the pair of them. So I'm really pleased to see this fight back on. There are people that don't like the fight. Frank Warren doesn't. Frank doesn't like the fight at all. Simon Jordan's not a fan. There's people I really respect in the business that don't like this fight. But I love it. I love a story. I love something that pulls you in. The hook, the tail. That's what's fascinating. It's almost like 80% in the build-up. You want to be invested in it because you want to get to see it and feel it. And I think Chris Eubank Jr., as you said, very intelligent. I think he's utterly premeditated what he did with the egg, and I think he's completely manipulated the press conferences and the build-up to the way he wants it to be. I thought he dealt with Eddie fantastically, and Eddie is the best speaker and showman, but the way he just sort of silenced him was terrific. It was very clever. Conor is a good talker, but he wasn't allowed to be, and he talks from the heart. They are polar opposites like their dads. They're both actually great characters, and they are really good talkers. Conor's fantastic when you let him go and hear him, and you can hear it's from here, whereas Chris Jr., it's more from maybe how he wants the production to play out, the event to go. How is he going to make the most money? How is he going to get the attention on him? How is he going to rile Conor Benn? How is he going to embarrass Eddie? All of these things, that's what he's thinking. And Adi Oladipo said it was probably 10-7 with the egg in favour of Eubank in Manchester, and at Spurs the second press conference was at 10-8. I actually preferred the second press conference. I thought it was more interesting with the 50,000 and the hands on the neck and all that. And I think the fight week build up will be amazing. What did I think of the egg? Look, it's not right to put your hands on another fighter in that situation by the rules. And of course, the British Bull were always going to fine Chris, but I thought it was funny. I thought it was hysterical. I mean, Eddie at the beginning said he thought it was a glass. Obviously, if it had been anything harder than an egg, you couldn't have done it. But I think Chris knows what he's doing. He plotted it for a long time since that was the reason or the excuse that was used, the contaminated eggs. It was always going to be in his back of his brain, in his thought process, to do something like that, I think. And while it was a shock to everybody, it goes viral. So it just accelerated the promotion. It just made it, I don't know, Tottenham is an incredible stadium, and I think they've got 65, 70,000 going. It made it a double sellout or whatever. It certainly brought much more attention. As you say, your mates are talking about it. People that I know don't really even like boxing are talking about it. So everyone's going to be tuned in, and that's what we need. And I'm all for it. I love hardcore trade boxing. Mm-hmm. I worked with GBM. We had a great show at York Hall on Friday night. Really good fights, good prospects. The way they did it. Then you got to the Warren show on Saturday, and it's a slightly higher level, and it's a bit more important, and there's more fans there. But fundamentally, that's hardcore trade boxing, normal boxing. Okay. Then you've got Misfits. My friend Will A's going into Misfits, KSI. They're making money. They're entertaining. I took my eldest daughter to KSI and Tommy Fury because she loves Tommy Fury. She fancies him. She wanted to see him. There's 20,000 people at the Manchester Arena. It was an amazing night. Was it great boxing? It was okay. So long as they're matched well. And when KSI and Logan Paul fought, everyone at Sky were like, oh my God, are we doing this? And Eddie was going to promote it, and we did it on pay-per-view for a different price and a different audience. And I was slightly skeptical, I'll be honest, at first. But then when I met KSI and I met Logan Paul, I fall in love with fighters. I just love them. Logan Paul, chatting to him in LA and his mad house and incredible sort of surroundings was just fantastic. He's a very bright young man. He's worked really hard to get to where he is. He's not a natural boxer, but he was an athlete at school. He's been a YouTuber for a long time. He's put night and day into getting to, for a long time, no one knew who he was. And suddenly he gets to a level and then he goes viral and blah, blah, blah. Good luck to him. He's been brilliant. And he's one of the best interviewees I've ever had. I've loved it. Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather was a circus of a fight. Floyd was always going to win, but Conor brought entertainment and panache and charisma and all of that to it. And again, I would say on one hand, Prince Nassim Hamid, Logan Paul, Conor McGregor, these are the characters that I've walked away from interviews with going, wow, they are just box office. They are must-see television. And so there is a place for misfits. There is a place for a casual fight like a Eubank Benn. There is a place for that, just like there is a place for Beterbiev and Bivol. And of course, it's sad that not many people walking the streets athletes know who those guys are because they're the cream, they're the best, and it's phenomenal watching them, and we all appreciate it. And His Excellency has made these fights happen, which is fantastic. And he's got Frank and Eddie working together, and now they're under the same umbrella on DAZN. And what a time for boxing. But I think you've got to sit back and say, yeah, there is room for a casual fight like Eubank Benn and a bit of egg smashing. There is room for a misfits where, the KSI's fighting whoever, and Will A's going in to fight Jordan Banjo and all that. And people, it's different. My 3 kids watch entertainment. They might not want to watch Philip Hergovich against Joe Joyce. That's for boxing fans. But if they're watching our sport in whatever way it is, then eyeballs are coming in. So I'm all for it. Did I like Mike Tyson against Jake Paul? No, I didn't. I didn't like it particularly. I thought it was sad that Mike Tyson, who I grew up loving and admiring, and we all did, the magnetism of Mike, at 58 to come out where his legs aren't there anymore and he's trained hard for it. Yeah, if he needs the money, great. And it was a nice exhibition. And we got away with it. And everyone was healthy and happy at the end of it. But we all knew Jake would win on points. Should Mike have been there? I don't know. But it was done. For me, what was important was that Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano had 74 million, I think it was, average Netflix viewers. And for that was brilliant. Female boxing has become phenomenal. I love the ascent of that. And to see Katie and Amanda, who are dancing again in July at the Garden, I just think it's wonderful that they had that sort of exposure. So, yeah, really good fights on a sort of mad night is okay with me. And so long as fighters, Sean, are being match right, that's crucial, whether it's at area level, whether it's at European, at world, whether it's in the elite class, or whether it is misfits. So long as they're matched okay, and it's not, and that goes down to charity events and white collar. So long as you've got the same weight and the same sort of background, or no one's going to get badly hurt, or it's going to be a horror show, that's what we don't want in boxing. We want... And I think that's what we've done on GBM, trying to get them to 55-45 fights or 60-40, not 95-5 or something like that. That's just not, it doesn't suit anybody. And yes, okay, prospects are going to fight journeymen and they're going to win, but the journeymen know how to survive. They're proper fighters. They know, they've learnt the art of survival or defense in there. So that's okay. But yeah, the matchmaking is crucial in boxing. It's the biggest job and biggest responsibility of all. So I'm all for the different things. I think Eubank Benn is going to be huge. I cannot wait for fight week. It's right up my street as a storyteller.
What's the prediction?
What's the prediction? I think Chris has definitely won the build-up. Conor Benn can win this fight, but will he? I'm not sure. I think Tony Sims has got a massive job keeping Conor controlled because he's going to be highly emotional. I think he's going to fly at Chris. I think he wants it more than Chris. I think he's so desperate for this. Could something happen like his dad, Nigel, when Nigel was knocking everyone out and he came into that Finsbury Park tent not far from here, and he came up against Michael Watson, and Michael just sucked it up and stopped him. And a lot of wise people within the trade are telling me Conor wins rounds, but then Chris wins the night by just staying out of trouble and picking him off. And maybe his heart rules his head a bit, Conor. However, I think Conor at the weight will be better than he was a couple of years ago because I think he's grown naturally. He's not the bigger guy, obviously, but Chris has got to come down again. So how's that going to play out? I think it's a pick'em. I think you've got to go with Chris on not just the size, but the level he's fought at. But that Liam Smith first fight is a worry. And, Conor Benn could do that to him. So I don't know is the answer. I'll let you know on the Friday night before the fight. But I tend to go with what I think at the beginning, which is I've got a slight leaning towards Chris in the fight. However, that could change. I'm a commentator. I'll never make an outright prediction. I don't think that's fair on the fighters. So I think both of them have a real chance in this fight. I think it's so important who is the winner on the Sunday morning, the bragging rights, the Eubank Benn name. I think it means more to the Benns. You see Nigel there, and I hope Chris Senior comes in. I hope he rides in on a motorbike on the week and adds some real flavour to it, because it would be great to see the four of them together as fathers and sons. I think that's That's the sort of slight missing part of it. But that's not up to us. That's down to junior and senior. I know they're talking now, which is great. And after what's happened to the family, you'd love them just to be together for this. It is. People will say it's a circus. People will say it's a high rolling entertainment. But you know what it is? It is a fight at the end of the day, and it is two guys that need this win. They need this win for the family name. They need it for their own careers, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to get that. It's going to be fascinating, and I really can't pick an outright. I won't pick it, but I can't pick it, if you see what I mean. And talking to people around on the trains and around the shops and everything, and people stop and they go, "Oh, that Benn's going to knock out Eubank," or that Eubank's going to whatever. I think talking to people out there, I've talked to hundreds in the last few weeks. I would say it's pretty split, but I would think more are probably going for Eubank, which is, I guess, the right way to look at it at the moment. But either of them could win.
Definitely on paper, when you look at it, he's been up with, a higher opposition and been professional for sort of longer as well. I just do feel that, Eubank is really playing a chess match, and suppose I've got another question here for you. How much is the pre-fight before the fight? Because it feels like Eubank is really just winding Conor up as much as possible, so he exerts all of his sort of frustration out. I don't know if you watched the Piers Morgan interview, and Conor Benn actually was, you say he talks from the heart. He was like, "I actually do wish you and your dad get along, because that was very sad." And Eubank didn't want anything to do with it. He just wanted it back into a rough fight.
I mean, Chris is just trying to control the whole narrative. Conor is a great guy. Chris is a great guy. I like them both. They're both very different. A little bit reminds me slightly of Carl Froch and George Groves, two totally different personalities. I don't know if you spend much time with either, but I spent so much time with Carl and so much time with George, and I like them both very much. And now they've got a sort of fun friendship after years of hatred. I remember commentating with Carl in Vegas, and he just wouldn't. George was over in one of the press rooms, and he just wouldn't go near him. And I was like, "Carl, come on, it's just ridiculous." I'd go and see George, and George goes, "Is he not coming over again?" And it was just so silly. And we sort of thawed the ice actually on a Sky night. We got both of them together in studio, and now they get on, but they are different people, very different people. They're never going to hang out together like as best chums, because they're just different. And I think that with Chris and Conor, and a bit like Senior and Nigel, they're not going to hang out together. They have different pathways in life. And I think Michael Watson has helped bring, who's a great, wonderful man, Michael, and just celebrated his 60th birthday. He's doing a mile of the marathon. He's for the Brain and Spine Foundation with Peter Hamlin and the team. He's fantastic, Michael. And I think one of the reasons that Chris and Nigel, Chris Senior and Nigel are better now is because of Michael. And I think that's great. I love seeing that. Barrera and Morales hated each other for years, but eventually their wives put them together and said, this is nonsense. And the four of them go out for dinners now, which is great, because they've shared their souls in the ring, and they've given us so much entertainment. It's wonderful that they can find I love that at the end, don't you, when the bell goes and fighters embrace like the respect after all the sort of nonsense beforehand, and they've got to get themselves into a way of, I'm going to win this fight, nothing, but one is going to lose or likely to, and I think that it's great to see that sort of respect afterwards. And I think with Chris Jr. and Conor at the moment, they're in that high sort of pressurized pre-fight mode where training's tough. They're trying to make weight, their last spars, all of that. So when you get onto a Piers Morgan show, he's probing them with wonderful questions and trying to sort of get a great hour of entertainment television-wise. Obviously, they're going to react in different ways, but I fundamentally think they're both good guys. Chris lives his life, and Conor lives his life, and they're very, very different. But listen, as a broadcaster, as an interviewer, as somebody around the boxing world, I love it when I see both of them. I think they're dynamite on camera, and they're great in the ring too. So look, I wish them the very best, the pair of them. I think Spurs will be absolutely on heat. I think it will be. I mean, it's a wonderful stadium. We've been there before with AJ and Usyk won. Obviously, Tyson's fought there as well. But I got to know Daniel Levy and the staff pretty well. back when they fought, AJ lost for the first time against Usyk, and it's an incredible stadium. I'm a big Liverpool fan, so I love it when Liverpool beat them there. And I get to enjoy the stadium too. But no, it's a great home actually for boxing. Wembley's wonderful, but Spurs is also good. So I think it's going to be phenomenal on the night. And I can't tell you how many people have asked me to go and get tickets, and I don't think there's any left. It's that sort of an event. So. It'll be brilliant to be there for DAZN and commentating on it, and I can't wait for it. And ultimately, it is all the fun in the games, but these two know how to sell a fight, and it's great that the casual fans drop in 2 or 3 times a year. We need to keep that going for the big fights because we need people talking boxing. And as I said earlier, boxing's in a wonderful place. It's at a fantastic spot now. Young fighters are coming through. The heavyweights are just rolling. You could take almost any of them out of that magic pot, put them together, and we're going to get a good fight. And great matchmaking will mean great fights ahead. And I love what His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh has done. He's got everybody working with each other. It means that fights are going to be made, fighters get paid more money, and fans get better quality matchups. It's a win-win. How long it will go on for, who knows? Boxing, I've seen it through the years, Sean, how it changes, how sort of Don King's hot, then Bob Arum's hot, then in comes Al Heyman, and all sorts of different things have happened in boxing. But at the moment, His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh is the main man. And it's good to see a lot of big events still happening in Britain. It's great going to Saudi. The Americans have still got phenomenal fighters, Terence Crawford, and the wonderful night at Times Square when we've got Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia and Teofimo Lopez, and you've got Boots Ennis fighting coming up. And so it's alive and well. And I'd like to see a sort of bit of a resurrection in America. And I think that's what they're going to aim for with HBO and Showtime sort of moving out of it. I think they really want to push the States again. But British boxing, I mean, people saying it's broken. British boxing is absolutely flying. It's terrific. And it's great because, as you say, you were inspired. I was inspired by the Barry McGuigans. Tommy Hearn's my hero. And now I see the young who are inspired to come on, and they want to follow in the footsteps of AJ and Fury, or they want to follow in the footsteps of your Amir Khans, your Ricky Hattons, your Kell Brooks. It's great times, and especially for the women too. Lauren Price coming through now, and that big fight made with Michaela Mayer, and you've seen Katie just, the flag bearer for women's boxing, and Tasha and Terry Harper, 3-weight champion, defending her world title on the big show in Doncaster in May. It's great. Great fights, great nights ahead, and great time to be in boxing.
Look, Adam, you're absolutely like an encyclopedia, and somebody who does podcasts and speaks on stages himself, public speaker, etc. I can only be in awe the way you sort of conduct yourself as well. Everything is like a storytelling. It's like a process you go through, this way, that way, what it actually is, what other people are thinking. I want to find out what made Adam Smith. I mean, did you always want to be a commentator? Was you always good at talking? Where did this start from? Talk to me back. Let's go back in time. And you're 9 or 10 years old. What's happening? What's going on?
I think there's 2 words that have carried me through life. One is passion, and the other one is sport. I'm a sports nut. I love pretty much every sport. My family will tell you, I could watch anything, whether it's in no order. Tennis is probably my favorite sport. Boxing's my business.
Really?
It's a strange one to say, and I love boxing and fighters to the core. But watching sport, I love watching tennis. I love football. I'm a massive Liverpool fan. Have been since I was 4 or 5 years old. My kids, 2 of my 3 kids are. I love everything: snooker, darts, rugby, cricket, golf. I just everything. I love sport, racing. There's something about. I think it was because I was not very good at it. I think it was because I was always trying to get into teams and never quite made it, or I'd get into the B's or C's. I'd never quite make that sort of team. I would be 12th man on the cricket pitch. I was always sort of missing out, and so I got I guess I got quite good at talking about sport and watching it. And I says if all my friends were better sports people than I was better at talking about sport than them. My mother's family, quite a theatrical family. My dad's in retail. So where did it all come from? I was very shy as a kid. I had friends, but I was very shy. Got bullied a little bit at school, which was tough. And I think I escaped into both the theatrical and sports world quite a lot. Sport was massive for me. So when I was about 9 or 10, I bought a dictaphone. So one of those little tape recorders. And I used to practice on the dictaphone or in front of a mirror being a commentator. So I guess I think my mum wanted me to be an actor. But again, I acted a lot at school and at uni, and I did drama at uni, but I was not very good. I was definitely not as good as everyone else who's there doing it. So, but I thought I did love talking about sport. So I think it was always I always wanted to do it, whether it was ever going to, because at that time there was like John Motson, Barry Davis on the football, Dan Maskell at the tennis, boxing was Harry or Reg, Ian Darke. There were very few people who did it. So people were like, well, how can you, as BBC, ITV, Sky was just coming through, just an embryonic company, really. They're like, so how do you go about doing it? And that was the hard part. And that was the part that I wasn't going to say or wasn't going to take a no to. And I think that's the message, I think, for anyone who wants to do this. You've got to be passionate, you've got to be dedicated, and you've got to have a huge amount of resilience, because a lot of people say no. I commentated into the dictaphone. It wasn't just boxing. I mean, my heroes were Kenny Dalglish as a footballer, Sammy Lee, the Liverpool players. I looked up to John McEnroe. I loved... who else I love in tennis? I love, so many. Monica Seles. There's so many tennis players I adored. In cricket, David Gower was my hero. So yeah, Barry McGuigan and Tommy Hearns probably. David Gower at cricket. I loved Jockey Wilson on the hockey. I loved Alex Hurricane Higgins, and then in later life, Ronnie O'Sullivan. I think you can see what the sort of the geniuses I like, the maverick geniuses, the Gowers, so gifted, but then used to sort of get out to weird, why was he, come on. I love the stories. I love the Kenny Dalglish, the magician, and then going on to become a manager. I love following journeys. I think that's the key. I loved following people. And so it was any sport. It didn't matter whether I was going to be a football commentator, a boxing commentator, a tennis commentator. I just wanted to be a sports commentator. And I went to a very academic school. And my sort of peers there were all going to go into the city or into George Osborne was in my year, the former chancellor. So obviously he told me, I said to him one day when we were sitting around, I said, what are you going to do? Because he was talking about politics. He was a very good debater. I said, what are you going to do? What are you going to be? And he goes, I'm going to be Prime Minister. And I said, oh, wow, that's a pretty big. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to be a sports commentator. I said, I'll tell you what, let's see who gets there first. Yeah. And when I became a sports commentator, I dropped him a note because he'd only made Chancellor. He never became Prime Minister. But no, I mean, look, he obviously did incredibly well in politics. But I didn't want to do that. I remember going around the careers fair at school and thinking, I don't want to go in the army. I don't want to be in medicine. I don't want to be an accountant. I don't want to do any of it. I want to be a sports commentator. How do I do it? And the way I did it was I wrote a lot of letters. I wrote to John Motson. I went to see him for a few minutes. I tried to be around people. I wrote so many letters and got so many rejections, but I had a name on it and I just went to see them for a chat. People were fantastic to me and, they encouraged me. My grandfather's best friend, I don't know if you know horse racing well, but the two great commentators were Peter O'Sullivan on television and Peter Bromley on radio. And I got an early chance to be in Peter Bromley's commentary booth at Ascot. And he had these big field binoculars. And I was fascinated as a sort of 12, 13-year-old boy looking at him and thinking, how does he remember all these horses' names? And he had this sort of colour chart and there was a big sort of field of 30 horses and all this. And I was just mesmerised mesmerized. Honestly, Sean, I was thinking, how does he do it? And he got these big binoculars and he was going, and they're coming round the final bend. And I used to do this when I was a kid, before my voice had broken. I was really good at the Grand National. I'd be, and Corbière on the far side, and here comes Hello Dandy. And for me, it was all about that excitement. So I was copying him and trying to be like him and in awe of him. And I guess, I just wanted to do it from a young age. And I went to a local newspaper, the Ham and High. I did a few articles from them. I eventually went through university. I realized that acting wasn't going to happen. And it was all about getting into TV. I went after university. I did a time in America. I did university here at Warwick. Every one of the guys there will tell you then all I wanted to be was a sports commentator. And now they tell me now it's that they've done all sorts of things in their careers, but they're like, you did what you wanted to do from day one and you weren't going to stop. And I've never said I'm a good commentator or whatever. I tell you what I do though, Sean. I put so much into it. I love it. I'm passionate. I respect fighters so much. Every one of them that gets in the ring. And look, I found boxing. I worked in news before. I worked at CNN in Washington. I worked at ITN in London. I worked a bit at NBC, and I ended up sort of banging the doors down, getting into Sky Sports, and Vic Wakeling, the head of sports there, and Mark Sharman. They gave me an opportunity to do some voice work. They said, "What sport do you like?" I said, "Everything." They said, "We've got a space on the boxing team at the moment." I said, "That'll do nicely. I love boxing." And that was it. I fell in love with all the fighters. I got Barry McGuigan walked through the door within a few months, and my boss said to me, "Oh, you'll be working with Barry around the country doing previews and working with fighters." And I was thinking, "Oh my God, Barry McGuigan's like my hero." And then someone said, "Oh, and can you call David Gower? We need him in." And I was calling my hero. And still, when I walk past David Gower in a corridor, whether it was at Sky or when I see him at Lord's, when I see Barry McGuigan around the ring, I'm that kid. They're still on my walls. So I'm still a fan. And I think that's what it is. I always wanted to be a commentator. Ian Darke was an amazing mentor to me at Sky. Colin Hart was an amazing mentor to me in the journalistic world. Bob Mee helped me, Glenn McCrory, Jim Watt, so many in those early days at Sky. And I've worked with some phenomenal co-commentators. I had a bit of fun on the darts for a while. I enjoyed commentating on darts, which was great. It was almost like that was my holiday job, and my normal job is boxing, so that was good fun. And I didn't commentate like I really knew darts. I commentated as a fan. So yeah, look, I love it. I've had a go at horse racing. I've had a bit of a go at football, tennis. Look, I'm a boxing commentator, and yeah, I think I know where I love. And when I took time out when I was ill, I didn't know what I was going to come back and do. But I think boxing is a sport that when you're inside it, it grips you. It's unpredictable. It is the Wild West at times, which I think why Dana and Turkey are coming in to try and change certain aspects to it. And it can always change. And we love improvements and investment in boxing. But I think what we do all come back to, and Eddie will say this and Frank will say this, because I've worked with them, Frank for 15 odd years, Eddie for 10 years. You talk to each other on the phone. You want things to happen. He wants his agenda. As a broadcaster, you want yours. But ultimately, you love what you do. And I think by doing boxing commentary, I could commentate. I could work in a sport which was a bit like the theatre, like my love of acting and TV and film. I could work in it where there was always a story going on and there's always something happening. So 24/7, something's going on. Like something will be going on right now as we're doing this out there, that as soon as we get out, I'm thinking, okay, that's taking a little twist, or, oh my word, I've got to look at, is that fighter going to go there? Or is that show still on? Or there's always something happening. So I think for me as a storyteller and someone passionate about life and passionate about sport, boxing is the answer, because really it's a sport that can go like that. It's a sport of life and death. And unfortunately, I have dealt with the really, really dark side of boxing, the sad side, losing James Murray a year after I started boxing at Sky and having to go and see his mum and talk to his family about boxing after he sadly passed. Tragic. But I remember his mum sitting there saying boxing saved James from the drug-infested streets of Glasgow. And, he died doing what he loved, and a tragedy. And then Spencer Oliver surviving, and I was really close to him and seeing his build up. And now, 30 odd years later, he's unbelievable. He's everywhere, all around the broadcasting world. And he's not bitter. Neither's Michael Watson bitter. They're not resentful ever. They love the opportunity to do it, and they do it all over again and twice on Sundays. And that is the magic of boxing. And when people say, "Oh, it does brain damage. Oh, it's dangerous. It should be banned. Oh, there's too many drugs in it," or whatever, I go back and I say, talk to Spencer Oliver, talk to Michael Watson, talk to Nick Blackwell, talk to these guys who have gone through really difficult times, and I'm never brave enough to go into a ring, but I had to deal with cancer. And only after that, Sean, did I really, truly understand what it's like to be at rock bottom, what it's like to maybe the fighters who've lost or who've been injured or something, and they've got to find a way to come back through life, through dealing with mental health, through dealing with a different physical change to them maybe. And I have so much respect, more respect now. I had so much before I had my illness for fighters and for sports people who I love, but since, almost double it. And that's why I will always say I am grateful for every opportunity, and will only do this because of the boxers, because of the brave men and women that get into that squared circle and they do it. It's their life, and they're putting that on the line for our entertainment, for our viewing, for our enjoyment. And wow, it's an unbelievable sport if you look at it like that. And there's so many characters in it, and it is a sport that sort of drags you in. I remember taking one of my daughters to a fight. Both of them, they've all come. My three kids have come to watch Katie. We're pretty close to Katie Taylor. So they've all been to watch Katie, but they're not big boxing fans. My son's a big football fan, and my daughters, they'll watch it, they'll come. But my eldest daughter came a while back to a show in Sheffield, and she was introduced to John Pegg, who's a great boxing man, one of the great boxing men from the Midlands. And he said to Jessamy, he said, what are you doing here? And she said, "Oh, I like the boxing." She said, "But he said, well, what are you doing with your life?" She said, "Well, I'm about to start uni and I'm going to study criminology. I'm really fascinated by people that commit crime and look into the sort of forensic, what makes a thief, what makes it someone murder someone, difficult stuff, right?" But she's very fascinated, as we all are a bit, I think, by Crime Watch and all those sort of programs. And she watched all sort of things. And John said, "Well, you're in the right place, because when God dropped lunatics into the world, he chucked them into boxing." And I think there's something to be said about that. We're all a bit nuts in the boxing world. I think we've all got good hearts, and I think we all love the entertainment, and we love the ups and downs. But yeah, we're all slightly crazy. You've got to have a screw missing to get in the ring in the first place. But I think sort of probably got to have a screw missing to be a commentator too, because we work mad hours. We're all in. We get very emotional as well. You can't on mic. It's very difficult, but sometimes you lose the plot. I've done it before when Danny Williams won the British heavyweight title with one arm. Unbelievable. When Diego Corrales somehow got off the floor twice against Jose Luis Castillo. When AJ got off the floor to win at Wembley. These sort of moments. I bumped into a guy who said, "Oh, Scott Dixon sends his best." You might not know Super Scott Dixon. He had a fight with Derek Roach in the Midlands for a British welterweight title many years ago. They got off the floor so many times. It was extraordinary what they went through. Alex Arthur and Michael Gomez, Matt Macklin and Jamie Moore. That's at British level. There are so many incredible stories and gladiators. Alex Arthur dropped me a message the other day. He said, "Me and you should work together." He knows it, Alex Arthur. He's great. There's a ton of them out there. And the Jamie Moores who you see go on and do real well. My wingman, Johnny Nelson, who I spent so many years with at Sky, and just seeing what he's got out of boxing beyond. It's an area that fascinates me, Sean, life after. And I just want these fighters to be happy, to be healthy, to be structured. They've got to have another job. They've got to do something different. They can't just sit around when they retire at 35, 40. They've got the whole lives in front of them. And the happier ones are the ones that keep working, keep themselves ticking over, and are not bitter. Because if you're bitter and resentful, I could be bitter about my cancer and say, why did it happen to me? But you know what? I was saved. I shouldn't be here. I'm lucky. So I'm grateful for my stoma. I'm grateful to be sat here today. And I'll never take anything for granted ever again. And it also makes me think, hey, if someone doesn't want me to commentate or they don't want me to do something and they do say no, like they did a lot when I was a kid trying to break through, I'll be okay. I'll be all right, because I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be alive. And I'm very lucky to be back in the boxing world that I adore. People have been amazing to me. And, you don't know this, but a lot of people don't know this, but people came through the doors of my hospital I was in 4 hospitals, Sean, 4 hospitals over 3.5 painful months. And I'll tell you, those people that came through, I had messages from Frank and Kala and Nisse. Eddie banged the doors down he was there on my bedside when I was in a real bad way. Ben Shalom came and saw me. I had AJ messaging me one night, like through the night, getting me through one of those nights. Tyson Fury, Katie, I can't tell you. And that's the big names. Dillian, Derek, I can't tell you how many people, when it was so rough, reached out to me. A lot of people didn't even know my situation, but those who did, and those who didn't, when they knew it, they were like, Adam, it's just so good to see you happy and alive and well. I am so grateful for the support and love I had. I'm so grateful for the support I've had since the DAZN announcement, and that I'm back on the mic with Barry and with Darren and with Carl and with the team. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I loved Sky. Cut me in half and I bled Sky. I was at Sky for 30 years and 95% of it I loved. And at the end, it was the right time to go. It was the right time to move on. I had a year out almost. I needed it. I was mentally and physically broken. I needed a break. I got it. I loved my Sky friends, I missed them, but I needed to move on, and I'm doing fun and cool things now. I'm balancing it with my family. I'm working at a food bank. I'm doing some cool stuff, and you know what? I'm really enjoying life, Sean. I'm really grateful for every day. And instead of waking up and stressed and like, oh my God, what's Eddie done today? Constantly sort of, oh my God, can I deal with today? And having your 3 hours sleep. Now, if I have 3-4 hours sleep, I get up and I'm like, okay, I'm a bit tired, but I'm here. It's another day. I've got a big tube that's attached to me at night. It's not pleasant. It's not easy, but that stoma keeps me alive. And hey, I am so grateful to the doctors that saved me. I didn't think I'd get through. There were times where I was just broken. I lost 4 stone in weight. I was looking at myself in the mirror thinking, I cannot do this. I can't fight. I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I can't fight. I couldn't go in a ring, but I had to fight for my life, and it was really hard. And I guess I'm just really grateful that I'm through that. And hey, look, I have my scans, and I don't know what the future holds. None of us do. What I do know is that for today, I'm really happy, and tomorrow I'll deal with. But yeah, I feel very grateful to be here.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people don't know a lot about certain cancers, and I would love, for you to talk us through some of the things that you went through in a little bit more detail. I can resonate with you here a lot because my mum's going through cancer right now, and unfortunately they found out stage 4, which is already broke stomach lining, in the fat tissues, CT scans. I didn't know what PET scans were before. I didn't know any of these things, and then chemo to push things back. She's past the stage where you could even do an operation to cut it out. So it's like on borrowed time. So every day is gratitude and
Absolutely.
giving thanks.
I'm sorry to hear that, but also you're right. Every day is very important. The one thing is, Sean, is that we all are born and we all die. So, and there's ways of thinking about it. You can think you're invincible. You can be really frightened of it, but ultimately, going through that with your mum, and as I said, I'm really sorry to hear that. And it's about accepting and enjoying what time you do have, because as I said, all of us are not going to be here. It's a short window. I lost a couple of friends, one in my 20s. He died in a fire, and I lost another friend who was hit by a driver when he was riding a bike. horrendous injuries, accidents, horrendous horror stories, terrible, tragic. So yeah, look, you don't know which way life's going to go. And I think that, the time you have with your mum, just enjoy every moment. And and I hope that she's got what she wanted out of life up to this stage. I think that's, I guess, another way of looking at it. I knew Colin Hart had terminal cancer a few weeks before he died. And we spent time talking about what he thought about his life and the fact that he was at a stage where he was very pragmatic. And he said, I've enjoyed my career at work, and I've loved my family life. And he was very, very accepting of it. And I think that's, I guess, the only thing and only place you can be at. It's tough.
So, Adam, they say, on the news, it said that potentially 1 in every 2 of us is going to have cancer at some sort of stage. What was it like first of all, what sort of symptoms did you have? Because yours was bladder cancer.
Yeah.
And second of all, what was it like when you got that sort of news? And, how did you move forward through that journey?
I didn't. Yeah, where do I start? I first of all, I didn't know what bladder cancer was, but that came down the line. I started feeling a bit, just not quite myself. And I put it down to stress at work and just mentally getting tired. But I'd never been ill. So I'd never had a day off, maybe half a day off. I had some heart palpitations when I was younger, maybe took half. I'd never been ill at Sky or at school or anything. I ran away from doctors. I never went, don't want to go to a GP. I didn't want to know what was in my body because I guess I gave up drinking a long time ago. I don't smoke. I've never smoked ever. So, and I keep myself fairly fit. But of course, the stress of being in the boxing world, running around and, as we talked about it, the few hours sleep, all that sort of stuff, of course, it can build up and you can eat badly and all that sort of stuff. But, I went to the gym. I was fairly healthy, I guess. But the stress is another thing. And it's a heart thing, of course, you've got to check. And cancers, obviously, it's related to. There was bowel cancer in my family, just through an uncle, but not sort of direct. But yeah, I guess I didn't really think about it. And then I got blood in my urine. Wow. And I just thought, wow. When it first happened, I thought, whoa, wow. I thought, that's odd. Didn't really think about it. I thought I must have eaten something or, maybe it was... I Googled. I mean, it's probably the worst thing you should do. Google. Don't do that, and I don't do that anymore. But I Googled, and it said if you've got blood in your urine, you should get to your GP. It could be something. It could be an infection, or it could be something more sinister. But I thought, nah. And I thought, I've eaten some beetroot in a salad or something. You con your brain, don't you? You just don't want to. You don't want to know, right? And then it went away, and I thought, okay. That's just nothing. And then it came back, and then it sort of got more regular. And
what sort of period are we talking about? Weeks or months?
Yeah. We're talking a small period, but it came back. So I thought it wasn't anything, and then it came back, and then for about maybe a couple of weeks, it was not good. But then it sort of went again, and so I wasn't quite sure. And then it came back and it was really awful. It was really heavy. It was like clotted and it was obvious that something was seriously wrong. And then I didn't want to do anything about it. It was like the brain saying, I know something is seriously wrong. And then it's your other part saying, I don't want to know. And that's that at that time. Now, I would say to anyone, if there are any symptoms or not even if there aren't symptoms, just you're 50-something, go and get yourself checked out. One of my friends has just got diagnosed with bowel cancer. He had an operation. He's recovering. He's good. It didn't spread. But that's, in my little group in Acton, of 4 of us who were really tight, that's 2 of us in our early 50s. So just go and get yourself checked out. Prostate cancer, Simon Jordan had it. He had no symptoms. He went because of his brother. So go and get yourself checked out. It's no harm. I never did. I never got myself checked out. And I think... But at that point, I was thinking, and I spoke to a friend, and he said, get yourself to a doctor. You have responsibilities, your kids, etc. That's all I needed. I needed to hear it from someone else. So I went down. I went to a walk-in clinic, and I went with somebody, actually. I saw a doctor quickly, And they looked at it and they took a sample and they said it's probably a urinary infection. So they gave me some antibiotics. So I went back, I took the antibiotics, nothing changed. They said, oh, antibiotics take, 72 hours to kick in, don't worry about it. Then I started feeling really unwell, like tired. And someone said to me, you're losing weight. And I thought, I've got cancer. I just thought it. I just thought it's definitely cancer. Because I thought, I have not felt like this. And there was blood in the urine. It can't be. And the antibiotics haven't done anything. Come on. Put two and two together. And then again, someone said to me, they said, oh, go back on the Monday if things haven't changed. And it was like the Wednesday. And someone said to me, go back in. You're not feeling good. It's not working. Thank you very much, the friends that told me that. I went back in and there was no infection in the blood. So they knew then that it was something else. So I got sent down to a hospital and I was checked out. And they said it's one of three things. They asked me if I was a smoker. I said, never smoked in my life. They said it's one of three things. It's a urinary infection. It is gallstones or it is bladder cancer. And I said, what's bladder cancer? And they said it's normally a smoker's cancer that affects people normally in their 70s, average age about 74. It's often a cancer that people get later on in life, and often maybe that's one of the things they don't recover from. So I was 51 at the time, and they said it's very rare for a non-smoker and someone at 51 to have bladder cancer, but it happens. And it could be. But they need to do a CT scan. NHS were unbelievable. They were really quick. I owe my life to them. Forever grateful. I was in the Prue Hospital at the time in Kent, and I went in and I was in and out of there for the next few weeks. I went in for a CT scan, and then they called me back 2 days later. So I knew it was serious. It was Valentine's Day. I went in. And I walked into, they gave me more blood tests and stuff. I walked into a little office and a doctor came up to me and he handed me two bits of paper. And one said something about a nephrostomy, which I had no idea what it was. And the other said, it was something to do. I looked at it, I glanced at it and thought, I've got a tumour. And I looked at the other and said, I don't know what that is. So I was really confused. And I got in and I sat down and he said, let me show you on the screen. And he put a TV screen up. And on the screen, he showed me my bladder. And there was a round bit taking up 2/3 of the bladder, probably. Looked like a big orange, more to one side. And he said, that is a tumour. And it's the biggest tumour I've seen in working in this hospital. I don't know whether it's benign or not. But it needs to be tested and it's up against the bladder wall. I said, okay. He says, so you're going to have a biopsy. We're going to have to put you under and you're going to have a biopsy to find out whether it's cancerous. And I said, well, what's this nephrostomy thing? And he said, that's your kidney. The kidney, you have one kidney that is completely failed. And so one kidney is working double time. So we need to immediately drain that kidney because I think the blood had got into the kidney and anyway, it was completely blocked. So they said that has to be done within the next hour and a half. And they said if you hadn't come in because of that, probably 4 days you'd have had. I'm like, 4 days? They said, yeah, you would have been dead. And I was like, oh my God. And that's when it dawned on me that, oh my God, thank God I'm here. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening to me, but I guess I couldn't control what was happening, but I was like, thank God I'm here. So they took the nephrostomy. What happened was they took and put a tube in me and tied something to my leg, which drained the kidney to try and get the kidney working again. That was the first thing. The next night, I went down for a biopsy, and they said it would take 2 weeks to get the results. And I was back in a ward, and the next morning, 8 or 9 of the urology team came around dressed in their sort of mauve outfits, and they all stood around, and a guy called Nick Fur-Walker came up to me, a consultant, and he said, Adam, I know you've been through the wars, but he said, I've got some really serious news to tell you. I thought I was dead. I thought, that's it. I thought I'd have 6 weeks or something. And he said, you've got aggressive invasive bladder cancer. It's stage 3. It hasn't broken through the bladder wall. We don't think, but we need to get you checked out to see if it's spread. But you're going to have an immediate or an emergency operation within a few weeks to cut your bladder out, to cut your prostate out and all the lymph nodes around it. And you'll be having a stoma bag. And I mean, there was a lot of information to take in. But I just sort of heard that I wasn't dead. So I was like, okay. They all sort of walked off. He asked me if I had private insurance through Sky. Not because the NHS were brilliant, but because I think the speed of it, because it was, I think I had to have it done within 6 to 9 weeks. I had to have it done within 4 to 6 weeks. And the NHS queue is about 6 to 9. So they said, if you've got private insurance, it just will increase the speed. I mean, it'll be the same people, but it'll increase the speed. So I did that. My brother was unbelievable because he's married to a doctor. So my youngest brother came. He was near me, and he came and he was there for the next few days. He was unbelievable. My whole family were unbelievable, and friends, obviously. And they got me through the what was going to become the hardest 3-4 months of my life because it hadn't even started then. At that point, I was in and out of the hospital. They had the CT scan. Thankfully, nothing had spread. So that was good news. But then I got sepsis. And I got a temperature about 106. I was in hospital back with sepsis. I got infection. The nephrostomy kept coming in and out. That had to stay like that until the operation. We had to decide whether to do chemo before or after the operation. For sort of belts and braces, we decided to do the operation first. My wife and I, we decided to do the operation first. I was moved to Guy's Hospital, and they were unbelievable there, just like they had been at the Prue. That was the second hospital. I had the operation. It was a 6.5-hour operation. They removed my bladder, my prostate, and 19 lymph nodes. They then went off for biopsies and stuff. Fortunately, none of those showed any sign of cancer, so everything was taken out. So that was the great news. And they said, yeah, you'll be fine. Rest up here. You'll go home on Monday. Unfortunately, I couldn't eat, and I thought something's not quite right, and things weren't digesting, and they gave me sort of a small diet to get going again. And because remember, my body parts had changed around, I didn't know what was happening here. So I've got a stoma bag, Sean. It's like a bag. I won't show you, but it's for urine. And obviously, I had to learn how that was to work. I mean, I'm my fingers. I've not got great motor neuron skills. You know, my fingers are very I find it quite difficult to sort of do things like that, like really pernickety things. I could never sew or anything. But I had to learn how to put a bag on. So I had to put a bag on and learn that immediately. Then I had to sort of, do you want that for life or do you want to have an artificial bladder? There's a lot of stuff going on. I said, look, let's just one thing at a time. And I had lots of when I came out of surgery, I had lots of holes and tubes and things. And I was on high drugs. And it was just all very complicated. A lot of blood tests. And then I couldn't eat. And I said, something's wrong. And they went, no, you'll be fine. It will come back. And I said, no, something's wrong. And on the Monday morning, I remember saying, can I have another CT scan? And they took me for another CT scan and they found that I had a twisted bowel. So I had an ileus. No, not a twisted bowel. I had an ileus, which meant it was blocked. So I couldn't digest anything. So then I had tubes up my nose and back, and I couldn't eat anything for a few days. I was fed through drips and then back to a sort of liquid diet and all that sort of stuff. And that was at the point where I was at real rock bottom. I was very, very thin. I could hardly walk I could get out of my bed. I was maybe getting out of my bed to do physio, and I could hardly even move because I had no energy. And I could just about get to the bathroom, and they were washing me in bed. It was horrendous. And I got to the sort of bathroom, I looked in the mirror, and all I saw was like a skeleton version of me, and I thought, I'm dead. I thought, I can't do this anymore. It was the pain around my stomach area was horrendous. And that then went on for 3 weeks in that hospital. I came out over the Easter period of 2023. It was absolutely horrendous. I was at home. I was screaming in pain. I couldn't move. I had this awful pain. They couldn't find the meds to stop it. I then got a twisted bowel. I had to go. I went back into Guy's again. I was rushed back in. I had sepsis again. I came out for another period of time. I then got a twisted bowel. I was blue lighted to Charing Cross. So that was my third hospital. I was in Charing Cross for a number of days. And that's when I had again a twisted bowel. So they had to work on how to sort of sort that out. And then they transferred me to the Cleveland Clinic, I was there for a month. And that was the place where I was in amazing hospital, but I was in agony there because they had to take it slowly. There was a lot of buildup of fluid in my legs. I had really sort of thick legs and I had like a no stomach. It was just bizarre. And then I had this stoma I was trying to maintain. And the stoma bags leak, right? They don't always work, right? They leak if they get like too much in it. It bursts, it leaks, and then you've got to deal with that. But I sort of found people that had gone through this. Tracy Emin, the artist, is one. She had exactly the same thing as me, exactly the same sort of cancer. And she is my sort of heroine, because she's very open about her cancer and what she looks like. I then thought, you know what, I'm going to try and become an ambassador for Fight Bladder Cancer. So that was like an aim for me, which I do now. And she is so open about it. And she talks about how difficult it is. And sometimes she's shopping and her bag bursts, whatever. So it's a dream of mine to meet her and to see her, because she's been a massive inspiration to me about how open she is. And it's really, really shit at times. It's awful. And at night you have, a long tube, but it keeps you alive. And I think that's what I'm just really, really grateful. The hospital came to an end eventually. My GP, actually, I had amazing consultants. Raj Nair, who did my bladder, was unbelievable. Jamie Murphy was phenomenal. He was my bowel guy. I sort of had everybody. Costis Amphrilogist, my oncologist, was unbelievable, because I had to, after 3 months, I had to get to a point where I had to get chemo before a certain point. Otherwise, it wouldn't be effective. It would lose its effect. So then I had chemo for 3 months. It's a point where I couldn't walk at home. I had to sit down in a shower for 2 months. Look, I don't want the violins out here, Sean, because people go through a lot worse than I did, right? But I'm just telling you what happened. And I was really, really back to learning how to walk. And my daughters would take me for walks around the block. My son would be like holding me up. I reconnected with my family. It was amazing times, even though I was in real pain. My GP, who is just unbelievable, Kajal Shah. She's unbelievable, Doc Shah at the Crown Street Surgery in Acton. She found out what it was. She said, I think it's nerve pain, and I think that maybe they haven't done this. Anyway, she gave me some stuff. Oh my God. Since that time, there's been no pain. So I go and see her whenever I want, really, but I go and see her for almost like a therapy as well as a physical sort of examination to see how I'm doing with everything. But it's, it's hard. And it took me a long time to recover. They say it takes a year, I think. And I thought, just take me a few weeks. But there's a lot of after stuff, and you've got to sort of ease yourself back. It's not easy. And I went back into the boxing world, and I thought, do I do that? But I sort of got almost like invited back in, come to that press conference, whatever, and I did. And I went to a Misfits fight, as I said to you, with my daughter. I went to the Katie Taylor fight with Chantel Cameron, and I was really probably 60-70% healthy. And but that was a big move for me to be back around ringside. And I guess probably the beginning of 2024 was when I started to feel myself again. I'll never be 100%, but I get aches and pains, and it's tough in the morning. Those first couple of minutes of getting up, I feel it in my legs. But Jamie Moore and I talk about it. Jamie was shot. He comes back. He trains fighters, but every morning his legs are not great. So I think when people have been through some sort of adversity, they really connect, and you really understand. Spencer Oliver, what he went through, and also like Darren Barker losing his brother. I think people have dealt with sort of either grief or like you have with your mom. It's you understand, and people that haven't maybe don't as much. Barry McGuigan, going through what he had with his daughter and everything. He's constantly on the phone with me. How are you doing? How's the health? And you get that sort of connection and the understanding. And it's horrible, but oh my God, I'm so happy to be alive. And I'm so grateful to the doctors and to the nurses and to everyone in the hospitals and that have helped me since in my recovery, mentally and physically, psychologists, therapists and doctors, everyone, they're all a doctor. And I just think I've got a very different perspective on life now. Mm-hmm. I'm healthy, and I have my checkups. And as you say, if you get the news, unfortunately, like your mum has, you've sort of got to accept. You've got to sort of say, okay, you can fight, and you'll always fight. A human being fights. I didn't think I'd make it. I feel in many ways I've had 9 lives, right? And there was times where I didn't think I'd make it. There's times where I thought I shouldn't be here, and I got through. I got another opportunity. And if that opportunity lasts today, or if it lasts another 30, 40 years, great. You've got to make every day count. I really think that. I used to say carpe diem, which is seize the day. And I think maybe I seized it too much. So maybe it's un tempum dies, which I have on my WhatsApp. You've probably seen it on my phone. And it's one day at a time. It's just for today. Enjoy every day. Take every day. Get something out of every day. Today we're doing this. Tomorrow will come, and then we'll deal with tomorrow. And I think whatever happens to me now going forward, however long I live, I'm glad I'm still here for my kids right now. And they've got an extra couple of years with their dad, which is the most important thing. But they've also learnt a lot from me in those 2 years about how to deal with adversity, how to change, how to adapt. When shit happens, and it happens to all of us at some stage. You can be riding high, the ego could be up there and all of that, and suddenly, bang, something happens. And it makes you recalibrate, makes you rethink. I like giving back now. And that might sound cliche, but if I see someone struggling, if I can, I want to help them. I don't mean handing money to people or whatever, but I want to talk to people. I want to help them. I want to do something, not for me to feel good. I want to do something to make them feel better. So I work at the food bank in Acton, not as much as I'd like because of the boxing world now. I'm back working and I have to earn money still, but I do like helping out or going to do talks in prisons or things like that. I like doing things that give back. And I've got a story, and I want that story to be told, because if it can help save people out there who are suffering from any sort of cancer, mine was bladder, but I had symptoms, and I know people who don't have symptoms who have struggled, but it is, and I'm a prime example of someone who said, no, I'm not going to a doctor, I don't want to go in. Just check yourself up. It can't do what it's better knowing than not knowing, because we've got responsibilities as dads or as brothers, as sisters, as we've got family people around us. And as much as you want to run and hide and whatever, it's better to know. Now I want to know everything. If my heart's not in God, I found out my heart goes the wrong way around, by the way, as well during all of this, but it still works. Okay. So I'm going to get that checked out from time to time. And I'm not going to be, oh my God, I feel ill, I'm going to rush to a doctor. You can't live like that. You've got to, I don't, you asked me about a diet earlier. Some people say to me, never have sugar again, never have this. So I talked to the dietitians and they said, look, Adam, live your life, but just be sensible, right? You don't drink anyway, you don't smoke. Maybe just watch the processed food, but just be, so I try and eat a bit healthier, but hey, if I have a Mackie D's late at night once in a while, have a kebab, I'm not going to stop living life, because otherwise what's the point? You've got to have fun, you've got to have adventures too. Yeah, but you've got to be sensible as well. And I've got to be more balanced. And I guess I'm all in. So I guess that's the thing I have to be careful about, is just sort of making sure that I don't overdo it, because I'm prone to doing that. I work hard, and with boxing and the sports world that we're in, I like to mentor young fighters. I like to help out, and you can do that 24/7. So you've got to have a break. And I said to you, we've booked in, I'll do it. It's great. It's a pleasure to chat to you, but I've worked days and days and days in a row, and I've got to just be careful of that. I've got to say to myself, okay, next couple of days, just take your foot off it a little bit, Ad, because I know what I'm like. If someone's on the phone to me and say, oh, Ad, can you just help me with that? I'm more than likely to say yes. And I've learned a little bit to say no, which is a harder word, but it's a word you need to, I think. But yeah, look, it's something I've been through, and something that is part of my story now. And do I look at myself as a cancer survivor? No. I look at myself as someone that has dealt with something, and because of the support and love I had of doctors and friends and family, I've made it through. I couldn't have done it on my own. I remember being on my own sometimes late at night in the hospital thinking, I'm going to die here. I can't do this. So thank you to everyone out there who helped, whether you're my best friends or my groups that just came in and helped me, or the nurses that just came in overnight and just kept me going, or, you know, the just the little messages and the people that came to around me. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. And I'm grateful to every single one of those people. I can't say thank you enough. But yeah, I just made it through and on to the next. And hey, if I get something, someone tells me something's wrong with me again, we'll deal with it. We'll look at it. We'll deal with it and we'll work at it. And they tell me I've got this or that, we'll deal with it. I think the key is with all of this is acceptance. And that's hard because it's hard to accept that you've got cancer. It's hard to accept that you've, you know, I mean, look, if something happens to my child, oh my God, you know, that puts everything into perspective, right? I want my children healthy. You want your children healthy and happy. And to hear somebody's child is in trouble is far worse than any adult, any 50-year-old man. My word, you know, we've already lived a huge life. Children you want healthy. Children are our future. And as long as my kids are healthy and happy and have their dad as present as he can be, that's what I want to be. And yeah, it's gratitude. It's some humility that you're taught as well, I think. You know, you think, oh, I'm flying here, there, and everywhere. I'm in Vegas. You know, and I don't like to ever say that I'm a good commentator or I like to be a nice person, but you do. I think you do have a bit of an ego then. You do think, oh, okay, hey, look at me. I'm doing this and that. And like, I never wanted to be like that at Sky. I had a great team. I had an amazing team who were better than me at stuff. I didn't ever want to be seen as that person. But I guess in a way, if you haven't gone through adversity or pain, you probably do get carried away with things. So I think it is a lesson. I've learned a lot. I feel like I'm a changed version of myself, if that makes sense. I'm still me, but I'm a very much calmer me. I don't tend to get angry or stressed like I used to. I mean, there are times, obviously, when we're all under pressure. But yeah, I tend to enjoy life more and tend to be calm. And yeah, I tend just to be very, very grateful for being back in the sport I love, but most importantly, being here and enjoying the sunshine of today.
I love that journey, that story that you've sort of shared with us in terms of there's so much to learn from it. Adam, if there's one sort of piece of advice that someone's going through something and this thing called anxiety comes over, it's that thing where you're not present right now. You're just thinking of all of the things that could be happening and going wrong. Is there one bit of practice that you do to just come back and go, like you say, we'll deal with it?
It's a great question. And it's a question I think I know my answer to. And I'm teaching mainly my eldest daughter at the moment, who can get a bit sort of, she's learning to drive at the minute and she's great, but she gets, you know, that parallel parking and she gets into a sort of spot and, you know, my son can get a bit angry at times and my little girl she's the vibrant nutcase and she's always keeping us on our toes. But yeah, I think it's a difficult one. I think what I've learned is to just stay still and breathe. And it's hard in life. Life is so fast. Life is, you've got to rush here. You're going to be late for this. You're going to be allowed that. Just breathe and take a moment. I think that is the best bit of advice I can say. I could follow it with control what you can control and not what you can't, or learn the difference between them. It's the serenity prayer, isn't it? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I think that's really important. I think it's like with my cancer, I couldn't do anything about it. I mean, I suppose I could have lived a better life up to it, maybe, who knows? I mean, I had genetic testing afterwards. Thankfully, there's nothing in there to worry the kids. So it happened, right? And I don't blame anything for it. But it was, I'm sure, stress, environment, factors, life, whatever. So I could live in regrets. No, I could have done that different. I don't live like that. I live in today. We've all made mistakes in the past. We've all got things wrong. We can all apologize to them until we're blue in the face. But ultimately, you can only live in the moment. And your history has made you to what you are now. So I would say in those moments of anxiety, of pressure, of bad news, of difficult stuff is just to, and okay, you can't do it in every way. If you get a sudden shocking call or something, you're going to react. You're going to be angry, devastated, whatever. Of course, it's a natural human emotion. But I think I think maybe just to hold yourself and breathe and try and rationally take some time to process what's just sort of happened. I think that's probably the best bit of advice. Breathe, keep yourself grounded, keep yourself calm. I think if I've got a stressful situation on commentary and there's suddenly something changing, whatever, you can deal with it like that, but you're better dealing it with if you just take a little breath. Just ground yourself. Sort of go again. I think you'll be better for that. It's hard. So breathing techniques, bit of meditation, bit of time on your own. I love walking now. I love fresh air. I used to go to the gym relentlessly, sort of every 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd be there on that exercise bike, on my phone, trying to multitask. Don't do any of that anymore. Yes, I'm on my phone. Yes, I've got pressures and stress of life, but I walk everywhere. If I can, I live in Acton. If I can walk to Chiswick, which is a 10-minute car journey, it's a half an hour walk, an hour walk there and back. Walk. I mean, by the time you're parked and all that, I mean, I couldn't walk here today. It was a bit far, but you get my meaning. I love walking because I never used to look at trees and flowers and I think, what? I'm far too busy for that, but it's kind of nice. It's kind of therapeutic. It's good for mental health. It's I breathe. I just sort of, I love walking around. I love seeing things. I'm walking around London much more. I took it for granted. I think, and okay, sometimes you're in a rush somewhere and you can't do it, but I think if you just have a different attitude and you're willing to change, I make mistakes. I behave badly at times. We all do. We all do things we shouldn't do. None of us can be a perfect human being. I'm far from it. But I guess I've learned things. I learned how to be a better version of me by just sort of adapting to what is out there and calming myself down and just, we're a bit yin and yang, my wife and I, with parenting, because she does so much more and she's so much more in there, but she tends to get a bit too close, I think. And sometimes I'm the one that comes in and says, just, it's easy for you to say, yeah, I know, but because I don't maybe do as much, but I try and calm the kids down. I try and tell them, come to me about anything. I'll never judge them on anything. I just won't. I try not to judge people, and it's really hard because you do. People naturally judge people, and I try not to. I know people judge me, whatever. That's their business. My business is I try not to. I think it's healthier not to. I think it's healthier to accept people for who they are, to look for the good in people, because there's good in all of us. I think everybody's got talent. I think it's about determination, passion, dedication. But yeah, I think the one bit of advice I'd say is about resilience. And I think resilience comes from maybe you don't learn resilience. Maybe you just have to do it. But resilience is so important. And I think being calm and grounding yourself when things are troubling is good. Peaceful.
Sounds like a lot of appreciation as well. It's like with the way you say, I'm just walking around the trees, the flowers. It's just like you're appreciating every single moment.
I'm a guy that likes excitement in life. So saying you're looking at flowers and trees might not be everyone's idea of sort of jumping out of planes or roller coasters or whatever. And I'm not saying I'm an adrenaline junkie. I'm far from that. I wouldn't do that either. But I love excitement in every day. I love fun. I love doing things. I love things that are happening, and unpredictable stuff. And I love all that. I love it when I've got 3 different kids. One is a bit cookie. My daughters are very like half of me really. And my eldest one is very kind and gentle, but she's a little bit sort of different. She's got a few learning issues. She's got dyslexia and dyspraxia and dyscalculia and hypermobility. And I think I've got all of those, but just probably not diagnosed. I'm sure I've got ADHD and I see a lot of that through my daughter, but that kindness I see in her, I love. And I look at my son and he's very academic and he's flying high at school and he's very committed. He'll work before, he won't be told. You have to tell him to do his homework. He's doing it before you've even told him. But he struggles in other ways. He's not quite as social. He's not quite as comfortable in other situations. He's got to work on that. And then I've got the 13-year-old turning 14, she's just an extraordinary young girl. She's vibrant. I've got two, Sean, that ran to school and one that doesn't really care. And although she'll do it. She goes to see her mates. She goes to get through school and what's happening now? Are we going to do volleyball? Are we going to do, I'm going to play the piano today. I want to go to Oxford University. Next one, I want to be a pole dancer. Next one, I want to be an actress. She's full of this sort of slight madness, but I love it. And I'm drawn to that. So, it's great having these different, I love my son. We chat football and really good, and my wife is much more sort of organised and controlled, and she runs the house brilliantly, and I'm lucky with that, with my sort of darting around the country, and so I appreciate all of them and what they bring, and I really appreciate my kids. I used to sit there, you learn a lot, Sean. I used to sit there thinking, the three of them have got to go to the same school, they've got to be treated the same, we've got to do exactly the same for them. What nonsense. They're three totally different characters. One of them wasn't at the right school. She then got to one that was. We sort of pushed her towards drama, and then she found criminology, and she's like, I don't want to do drama, I want to do criminology. I'm like, really? But what about drama? I'm like, Adam, stop it. Don't push. Let them roll. She's rolling, and she wants to. She's in criminology. She's about to go to Asia on a gap year. She's great. She's flying. My son wants to make a lot of money. Great. Good luck to him. Maybe you should go and work with Eddie. I don't know, but he's flying, and he's great. And my little girl, who knows what she's going to be? She could be in Hollywood. She could be in jail. I don't know what's going to happen to that one. I hope I live long enough to find out, because she's a right character. And look, they keep us on our toes. And I think what my cancer has taught me is to appreciate that time with them, to appreciate the time I have around boxing. I think I used to take it for granted, being at ringside, being everywhere, being, whether it's this fight or that fight. Oh, of course I'm going to that fight. Now, I can't wait. I can't wait to get to the next one. And I don't care whether it's area level, English level, world title level. I just want to be around the sport I love and watch the fighters I love. And I'm honestly grateful to Eddie, to Frank, to everyone, Ben, to everyone that supported me. And I think, in a way, Sean, because I tried to be nice, I guess. Yes, the ego. Yes, you make mistakes. Yes, I made some wrong decisions, of course. But I tried to be nice to people. Nice is a bit of a word, but I try to be friendly. I try to keep a good relationship with people. And I think when you go through bad times and you find out who really is your friend, who wants to roll with you, and I don't have any problem with people that drift away and they think, oh, he's dealt with that, I don't really can't, the cancer, whatever, or he's, the way he dealt with Sky. I don't know. People can judge. I don't have any animosity to anybody. And there's a lot of animosity in the boxing world, and I don't like that. I like people in the boxing world. They're all different. They're all characters. I had a message on Saturday, I was at a Frank show. I had a message from Eddie. I had a sort of hug and a handshake from Frank, and then a tap on the shoulder from Ben, who was there as well. They're the three, and obviously the 24 hours before I was working with Izzy, right, on GBM. 4 of the promoters in British boxing. And I'm talking to all of them. And I'm friendly to them. And I like them. And I've had great times with them. And I've had difficult times with them. But they know what I'm about. And I know what they're about. And there's an appreciation. And I think I do appreciate them. And I appreciate fighters the most. And I appreciate trainers. And I appreciate fellow broadcasters who do what I do or do similar. And whether they're at Sky or at Channel 5 or whatever, on TalkSport. I love my TalkSport guys. I've had a lot of fun with them. The Sky lot that I miss, the Andys and the Ed Robinsons and the James Tynes, all my friends from Sky. And you move on. You don't have the time with them anymore. I miss Johnny hugely. Johnny and I rocked together. We were like Ant and Dec on the boxing scene. Ringside was the best. But, Johnny said to me when I was devastated when Ringside went, I was so upset. And Johnny went, Ads, we've had a great run. We've left the party at its highest. I get quite emotional thinking about it. He goes, Ads, always leave the party at its highest. You don't want to be the one in the corner at the end. He said, leave the party at its highest. Yeah, Johnny and I miss him. Every day I miss Johnny Nelson. We're still best buddies. I don't see him as much. Of course, we're doing different things. But when you find people that just, and we were so different, we came from different backgrounds, different worlds, but we connected on a human note, and we both had passion for life and a love of fun and adventure and a love of young, trying to inspire the next generation. And because Johnny had been through all sorts of adversity in his career, he never judged anyone. And because I just loved fighters, I'd like to work with Johnny again. And I know we're doing something actually coming up quite soon. I cannot wait, because now I'm really, really appreciative of tough times. I'd love to roll with him again. I think we'd be even better. I'm much clearer with life now. I see it through a cleaner lens. My eyes aren't quite as good now. Neither are Barry's and Darren's. We're trying on glasses at ringside the other night. When you get to our age, it's like you're looking at your phone like that. You're thinking, why am I looking at it like that? And put the glass on. Whoa, hello, a new world. So yeah, look, it's. I think we're big kids as well. Like I look at Barry and Darren, and we're just big kids. You know, we think we're 25. You know, but we're. You know, my best mate's a guy called Hugo Simpson, and he's a communication coach. So we work together a bit, and he's worked a lot with boxing. And we've got a business we're launching, Talk the Talk. We're working a bit with Adam Azim just on communication skills and stuff. And you know, we want to help fighters out there because it's a really important part of the business. And he says to me, I feel 25, and you know, I know, but we look in the mirror and maybe we're not. I'm like, yeah, we are. We're still kids. Come on, Johnny will always be a kid. Spencer will always be a kid. I'll always be a kid, and that's why we get on, because we've still got that enthusiasm, that passion. Every time I see Spencer, it's like, yeah. Every time I see Johnny, it's when you find people like that. And they have that same passion that you do. It's just a pleasure. And now I've got two more big kids in Darren and Barry that I'm going to play with and have fun, and we're going to roll together, and hopefully we're going to have a dynamic, you know, trio. I just can't wait for the next few weeks and months ahead at DAZN. I'm so grateful to Jamie Rice and Mike Ridout and the team and Chris Glanville who've given me this opportunity. And they're a great team. And there's no it's not even a friendly rivalry with Sky. I love Sky. Jonathan Lish, the head of Sky, I adore him. Right? I adore Rob Shelms and Helen Foster and Hendo and all my friends from Sky. I adore them, of course. You don't work somewhere 29 years and don't have amazing memories. But this is the next chapter in my life. And I think a big inspiration has been my dad, because my dad was very senior in retailing at Marks and Spencer's, and then he moved over to a company called Kingfisher, and he ran it as CEO, and then he got fired, and he had to sort of reset, and he took a year out. Wasn't ill like me, but early 50s, same sort of age. He took a year out, and he went plural, and he became the non-exec chairman of Mothercare, the non-exec chairman of Space NK, a few other bits and pieces, and he had a little portfolio of stuff. That was when he was 52, 53, my age. He's 84 now, my dad. He's still the chairman of Space NK. He's still got little interests in business. He plays golf. He keeps himself fit and in shape. I'm having lunch with him and some of his old boys tomorrow. And do you know what? If I can do that, whether I'll live another 10, 20, 30 years, who knows? No one knows that. But if I can have that mentality of working for DAZN or TalkSport or Cadro or the different things I'm doing, Summit, GBM, a few little different RTF with Team Usyk, if I can do those little projects and I can keep having a nice little family, do the odd food bank, walk through the parks, still be around a sport I love, and Liverpool are going to win the league, I mean, happy days, happy days. And yeah, I'm grateful, and I will always be grateful to the people that saved my life, and I'll be grateful to the people that give me and my family opportunities, and I will never take anything for granted, and I'll never stress too much again, because I've been there, and it was very, very dark and very tough. And yeah, I just hope I have this mentality for as long as I'm around.
You will, Adam. And honestly, you've inspired me and all of the listeners at home today. So I just want to say a big thank you for coming on today, giving so much and letting us, you know, into the private side behind the curtains. Yeah, and there you go, guys. I hope you really, really enjoyed this episode. We're going to put all the links down below. So if there's any questions, anything you want to reach out for, you can let us know. Don't forget to smash the like button, leave us a comment, and share this with someone who really needs to hear it. Peace.